Jace is dead, and everything Rhaenyra fought for is already starting to fall apart. The Iron Throne is hers. King's Landing has fallen. The Blacks have won the capital. But here is the thing nobody is talking about. Winning the city was the easy part. What comes next is going to be far more brutal, far more devastating, and far more complicated than anything we have seen in this war so far. Because the moment Rhaenyra sat down on that Iron Throne, the real game began. Her enemies didn't disappear. They scattered. And scattered enemies are the most dangerous kind. Aemond One-Eye is still out there. He still has Vhagar, the most powerful dragon alive. And he is furious. Daemon is becoming harder to control by the day. Her own council is starting to question her decisions. And somewhere out there, Aegon is still breathing. Now, episode 2 is where this war stops being about dragons in the sky and starts being about survival on the ground. This is the episode where the cost of the crown becomes impossible to ignore. Rhaenyra lost a son to get here. And the question episode 2 is going to force her to answer is brutally simple. Was it worth it? Let me show you exactly what is going to happen. The episode opens in the aftermath of everything. King's Landing is no longer a battlefield, but it does not feel like a victory either. The streets are scarred. The Red Keep has changed hands, and Rhaenyra Targaryen now sits where she always believed she belonged. But the Iron Throne has never been comfortable for anyone who sat on it, and it is not going to be comfortable for her either. The very first thing this episode is going to show us is the weight of what she has just done. She did not just take a city. She burned her way into it. Daemon slaughtered Hightower soldiers in the streets. The City Watch turned on their own. And the people of King's Landing watched all of it happen from behind their doors. That is not the kind of entrance that wins hearts. That is the kind of entrance that wins fear. And fear is a terrible foundation for a reign. The small council chamber inside the Red Keep will now belong to her. And this is where episode 2 is going to start showing us the cracks beneath the surface of her victory. Because the moment Rhaenyra sits down in that chamber and looks around the table, she is going to realize something uncomfortable. The people she needs most are the ones she can trust least. Her advisors are already divided. Some of them are still in shock from Jace's death. Some of them are angry about decisions she made during the battle. And some of them are quietly calculating what her reign actually means for their own futures. Jace's death is going to hang over every single scene in this episode like a storm cloud that never fully breaks. He was not just her son. He was her heir. He was the future she was building all of this for. And now he is gone, floating face down in the waters of the gullet with 3 arrows in him and his dragon dead beneath the sea. That image from the end of episode 1 is going to echo all the way through episode 2, and the writers are going to make sure you never forget it. Rhaenyra is going to have to hold herself together in public while privately dealing with a grief so enormous it could swallow her whole. And that tension between the queen she needs to be and the mother she actually is will be one of the most powerful things this episode delivers. Now here is where things get really interesting. With Jace dead, the line of succession has shifted. And everyone in that small council chamber knows it. Rhaenyra still has other children, but the political reality of losing Jace cannot be overstated. He was the one who had been raised and groomed for this. He was the one who had built alliances. He was the one the other lords had started to rally behind. Without him, some of those alliances become uncertain. Some of those lords are going to start asking questions they would never have dared to ask while Jace was alive. And Rhaenyra is going to have to answer those questions from the Iron Throne while still processing the fact that her son is dead. This is the kind of political pressure that breaks people. And episode 2 is going to push her right to that edge. Inside the Red Keep, we are also going to see what becomes of Alicent and Helaena now that they are captives inside the very castle they used to rule. This is a dynamic the show has been building toward for 2 full seasons, and now it is finally here. Alicent is a woman who spent her entire life navigating power from the inside. She knows how to survive. She knows how to read a room. And even as a prisoner, she is going to be calculating every single move. Helaena is a different story entirely. She has always been fragile. She has always been haunted. And being trapped inside the Red Keep under Rhaenyra's rule is going to push her into a very dark place. The show is not going to let these women simply fade into the background now that the Blacks have taken the city. They are going to remain central to the story, and episode 2 is going to start showing us exactly how Daemon. Targaryen is going to be one of the most important figures in this episode and also one of the most dangerous. He took King's Landing through sheer brutality. He rode into that city and cut through everything in his path. And now that the city is taken, he does not have an outlet for that energy anymore. Daemon without a war to fight is unpredictable. Daemon sitting inside a castle with nothing to conquer is a completely different kind of threat. His relationship with Rhaenyra has always been complicated. They love each other in a way that is real but also twisted and consuming. And now that they are both inside the Red Keep, now that they are actually ruling together for the first time, those complications are going to come roaring to the surface, because Daemon thinks this victory belongs to him. He fought for it. He bled for it. He slaughtered for it. And he is not the kind of man who sits quietly at someone else's right hand without expecting something significant in return. Rhaenyra is going to have to figure out what to do with a husband who is equal parts asset and liability. And she is going to have to do it while grieving her son and managing a fractured council and dealing with enemies who are still very much alive and very much dangerous out there beyond the city walls. This episode is going to make it very clear that taking the throne and holding the throne are two completely different wars. And the second one has only just begun. Out beyond the walls of King's Landing, the war is far from over. And episode 2 is going to make absolutely sure you never forget that. Because while Rhaenyra is sitting on the Iron Throne and trying to hold her fractured court together, her enemies are regrouping. They are moving. They are planning. And the most dangerous one of all is doing it on the back of the largest dragon in the world. Aemond One-Eye is out there. And Jace's death did not satisfy him. It inflamed him. Because Aemond is not fighting this war for the Iron Throne. Not really. He is fighting it for something far more personal than that. He has been underestimated his entire life. Mocked. Dismissed. Overlooked in favor of a brother he despised and a nephew he considered illegitimate. And now that the capital has fallen, now that everything the Greens built has collapsed around him, that rage inside him has nowhere left to go except outward. Aemond One-Eye on Vhagar with nothing left to lose is one of the most terrifying things this war has produced. And episode 2 is going to start showing us just how terrifying that actually is. We are going to see Aemond regrouping with whatever remains of the Green forces outside of King's Landing. The High Tower soldiers who survived the fall of the city are scattered across the Crownlands and the Reach. Some of them have already started making their way back toward Old Town. Some of them are hiding. Some of them have already switched sides, because that is what soldiers do when the castle changes hands, and they want to keep breathing. But Aemond is not interested in survivors who are running away. He is interested in rebuilding something. He is interested in making Rhaenyra's reign as short and as painful as possible. And the way he is going to do that is not by marching an army back to King's Landing. Not yet. He is going to do it by making the entire kingdom afraid. By reminding every lord and every city and every holdfast between the capital and the edge of the map exactly what Vhagar is capable of. Because Aemond understands something that a lot of people in this war are still refusing to accept. Dragons are not just weapons. They are symbols. And the side that controls the most powerful symbol controls the narrative. Rhaenyra has the throne, but Aemond has Vhagar. And in the minds of the common people, those two things are not as far apart as Rhaenyra would like them to be. This is also the episode where we are going to start seeing the political fallout of Jace's death ripple out across the entire kingdom. The lords who had declared for Rhaenyra did so in large part because of Jace. He had ridden to their seats. He had looked them in the eye and asked for their loyalty personally. He had made promises on behalf of his mother. And now he is dead, and those promises are sitting in an uncertain place. Some of those lords are going to stay loyal. They committed to the Black cause, and they are going to see it through. But some of them are going to start quietly asking whether this is still the winning side. Whether the cost of backing Rhaenyra is worth what they are going to have to pay. And a few of them, the most dangerous ones, are going to start sending ravens to people they probably should not be sending ravens to. This is how wars within wars begin. Not with armies marching in the open, but with letters traveling in the dark. And episode 2 is going to plant the seeds of that very thing happening right beneath Rhaenyra's feet while she sits on the throne she just died to take. Harrenhal is going to be a significant location in this episode, and what happens there is going to send shockwaves through the rest of the season. Aemond One-Eye took the castle in episode 1. He burned his way through it and executed the men who were holding it. But Harrenhal has never been a comfortable place for anyone who tried to hold it. There is something deeply wrong with that castle. There has always been something deeply wrong with it. The show has been hinting at that since Daemon first arrived there in Season 2, and now that Aemond is inside those walls, Now that he is the one sleeping in those haunted halls and walking those burned corridors, the castle is going to start doing to him what it does to everyone. It is going to get under his skin. It is going to feed his paranoia. It is going to amplify every dark thought he already has. Alice Rivers is still there. And her presence in Harrenhal is not accidental. She is connected to something ancient and strange, and the show is going to start pulling on that thread in a very deliberate way. Whatever she tells Aemond in this episode is going to change the way he thinks about this war. And not in a direction that is going to make anyone feel safe. Meanwhile, in the Riverlands, the situation on the ground is becoming increasingly brutal. The war has not stayed in the skies, and it has not stayed in the castles. It has come down into the villages and the fields and the roads between them. Ordinary people are paying the price for a conflict between two branches of the same family. And episode 2 is not going to look away from that. Criston Cole's men have been leaving a trail of destruction across the Riverlands, and that is going to continue. But something is shifting in the dynamic between Cole and the men he commands. The scene from episode 1 where he watched his soldiers commit horrific crimes and did nothing is going to have consequences. Because there are men around him who are starting to see him differently. Who are starting to wonder what kind of commander he actually is. And Cole himself is a man who has always defined himself by his honor, even as he has compromised it again and again. That internal contradiction is going to start tearing him apart in ways that are going to make him unpredictable. A man like Criston Cole becoming unpredictable in the middle of a war is an extremely dangerous thing for everyone around. Him, Hugh the Hammer, is going to become one of the most fascinating characters this season has to offer, and episode 2 is going to start developing him in a way that is going to make you pay very close attention. He is a dragon rider now. He claimed Vermithor in season 2, and that single act changed everything about who he is and what he is capable of. But Hugh the Hammer did not start this war as a lord or a knight or a man of noble blood. He started it as a common man. A man who knew what it felt like to be hungry and cold and overlooked by the people in the castles above him. And now he has a dragon. Now he has power that most lords could never dream of. And that combination of common roots and extraordinary power is going to make him one of the most volatile and unpredictable forces in this entire conflict. Episode 2 is going to show us Hugh starting to think bigger than anyone expected him to. Starting to wonder why he is fighting someone else's war when he could be fighting his own. That thought is going to be small at first. Just a flicker. But it is the kind of flicker that starts fires. Back on Dragonstone, the mood is nothing short of devastating. The island that served as Rhaenyra's seat of power for 2 full seasons now feels like a ghost of what it used to be. The people who remain there are the ones who could not make the journey to King's Landing. The servants, the old. The ones left behind while the dragons flew west and the war moved with them. But Dragonstone still matters. It still holds significance. And episode 2 is going to remind us of that in a very pointed way. Because there are dragons still on that island. Riderless dragons, unclaimed dragons. Dragons that have been sitting in those caves and on those cliffs waiting for someone brave enough or desperate enough to approach them. And with Jace dead and the war still very much alive and the Blacks suddenly short of dragon riders in ways they cannot afford to be, those unclaimed dragons are about to become the most important strategic resource in the entire conflict. Rhaenyra is going to have to make a decision about them, and that decision is going to be one of the most consequential things she does this season. The dragonseeds are coming, and if you do not know what that means, episode 2 is going to start introducing you to that concept in a way that is going to completely change the shape of this war. The idea is as simple as it is dangerous. Targaryen blood runs through more veins than just the ones sitting in castles and wearing crowns. There are bastards out there. Common-born men and women with enough of the old blood in them to potentially bond with a dragon. Rhaenyra needs riders. She needs them urgently. And the dragonseeds represent her best and most desperate option for solving that problem. But asking common people to walk up to wild dragons and attempt to bond with them is not a recruitment drive. It is closer to a death sentence for most of the people who try it. And episode 2 is going to start confronting that reality head-on. We are going to see the tension inside Rhaenyra's court between the people who think this is a brilliant and necessary move and the people who think it is reckless and potentially catastrophic. Because putting dragons in the hands of common-born riders changes the political order in ways that go far beyond this war. It raises questions about blood and legitimacy and power that the nobility of Westeros is absolutely not ready to answer. Rhaena. Targaryen is going to have one of the most emotionally complex arcs in this episode, and it is one that has been building since the very beginning of the season. She finally bonded with Sheepstealer. She finally has her dragon. But the battle in the gullet showed her exactly what that bond means in the worst possible circumstances. She lost control of Sheepstealer in the middle of a naval battle, and that loss of control contributed directly to the chaos that got her brother killed. She is going to carry that with her into every single scene she appears in during this episode. The guilt is going to be written all over her. And the show is not going to let her off the hook for it easily, because that is not the kind of story this is. This is a story about consequences. About how every action in a war like this sends ripples outward that nobody can fully predict or control. Rhaenyra wanted a dragon more than almost anything. And now she has one. And the first major thing that Dragon did in battle helped lead to Jace dying in the water below. That is a weight that would break most people. And episode 2 is going to show us whether it breaks her or whether it forges her into something harder and more determined than she was. Before the relationship between Rhaenyra and Daemon is going to reach a genuinely dangerous point in this episode. These are two people who have always understood each other in ways that nobody else could. They are alike in their hunger and their pride and their absolute refusal to be told what they cannot have. But that similarity, which has always been the foundation of their bond, is now becoming the source of their conflict. Because they both want control. And there is only one Iron Throne. Daemon rode into King's Landing and slaughtered his way to victory, and he expects that victory to mean something in terms of how power is shared between them. He is not interested in being a consort. He is not interested in sitting quietly while Rhaenyra makes every decision without him. And Rhaenyra, on the other hand, has just lost her son and taken the throne she was born for, and she is in absolutely no mood to share authority with anyone. Not even Daemon. Not even the man she loves. The scenes between them in this episode are going to be electric in the way that only scenes between two incredibly powerful people who are also deeply in conflict with each other can be. There will be moments of genuine tenderness buried inside what are essentially two people fighting for dominance. And by the end of the episode, something between them is going to shift in a way that cannot easily be undone.